To me, this is giving Frances some lively energy. It's like a calm sort of somberness. It's a somberness that's skewing toward light. There's a decrease in intimacy throughout this verse. It takes a lot of skill to write like this. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. On my channel, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of literary analysis. Today we're going to be analyzing the song Frances Forever by Mitski. I will make sure to link my Mitski analyses playlist so far below for you. Here's a list of literary terms I may refer to throughout this video, and as always, everything I state is just my own personal opinion. Music and art are very subjective, and I always love hearing what you think down below in the comments. Let's start by discussing the song title. This song is called Frances Forever. Frances is the name of a person. I'm going to be very vulnerable and transparent with you and let you know the very first thought I had upon hearing this song title. I'm like kind of embarrassed, but not really. I first thought about Johnny Depp's Winona Forever tattoo, and I was like, interesting. In my opinion, Frances is someone who was very special and important to our protagonist. They could have been a platonic person to the protagonist. It could have been like a close friend, maybe a family member, or it could have been a romantic interest, a romantic partner. I'm more inclined to interpret this as a romantic partner, and I'll explain more why as we get into the song. The word forever here could be interpreted as the protagonist thinking about this person forever. They're never going to get over this person if this is about a romantic interest. Do you guys think that Frances is someone who is no longer in the protagonist's life because they had a falling out or they grew apart, or because they're no longer living? I think both of those interpretations work in this song. When we get to the lyrics about the protagonist looking up at the sky, that kind of makes me lean towards someone who is no longer living. If we are to go with that interpretation, then this song title could suggest that the memory of this person will live on forever. Let's dive in with verse 1. Let's look at the first lyric. It says, "I don't know what to do without you." This signifies a loss that the protagonist has endured. The fact that they don't know what to do without this person, without Frances, signifies that Frances was an important person to them. Perhaps Frances was a part of this protagonist's daily life, or even if that's not the case, I would assume that the protagonist and Frances were very intimately and emotionally connected. I don't know where to put my hands. This is why I think Frances was referring to a love interest, because here I think of holding hands, right? The protagonist was always used to holding hands with Frances. Maybe when they would hang out, like they would just cuddle with one another. It's of course open to interpretation. If you have a different take about this, I would love to hear it down below. I've been trying to lay my head down, but I'm writing this at 3 a.m. So the protagonist can't fall asleep. I really do enjoy that it says, but I'm writing this at 3 a.m. Not only because it gives context, but it's very specific, and specificity always brings forth intimacy. That's what I always say. I love when there are specific lyrics in songs, even if you can't relate to it exactly. It just makes it feel more intimate. I literally feel like this is a diary entry. It softens the tone of the song, in my opinion. The protagonist is trying to sleep, but they can't. I think this could be due to their emotional state. I would assume they're experiencing a lot of emotional turmoil at the moment, and if this person, Frances, really did pass away, then they're grieving someone. I do want to point out that since verse 1 is existing in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., we can think about dark imagery a little bit. And I do think it's a bit of a stretch in this verse. However, we have the mention of sunlight a little bit later, which brings forth light imagery. So I do want to talk about this a little bit. Again, this could be an overanalysis, but I wanted to mention this because this is literally an analysis channel. Really briefly, dark imagery is often negative. When you're in the dark, you can't see everything. It could be mysterious, it could be ominous, it could be scary. Dark imagery could represent someone's emotional state, their internal state. We can keep that in mind right now, and then we'll talk about dark imagery versus light imagery when we get further into the song chorus. The chorus states, "I don't need the world to see that I've been the best I can be, but I don't think I could stand to be where you don't see me." Overall, the protagonist here is saying that they don't care about how the world views them. They don't care about what everyone else thinks. All they care about is existing in a place where this other person, where Frances, can see them and acknowledge them. They want to be noticed by Frances. This kind of reminds me of the song Nobody, just a tiny bit. I will link my analysis below if you're interested. In Nobody, that protagonist was feeling so so lonely that merely being adjacent to the sound of life being lived was sufficient for them. Those social breadcrumbs were able to satiate them completely. It's a different situation here. However, that concept of being satiated with something less than the minimum is present here. And again, we don't know 100% if this person, Francis, has passed away or if they're still living. But when we look at this verse, the first two lines talk about being noticed in more of a specific way by the world. The specificity comes in because the protagonist is mentioning a specific quality that could be noticed by the world, quality of them being the best they can be. However, in the last two lines, there is a lack of specificity, right? The protagonist is talking about standing somewhere where this other person, Francis, could see them. That's not acknowledgement of a specific quality by Francis. That's Francis just being able to notice them. We go from specific to more broad. There's a decrease in intimacy throughout this verse, which is interesting and also really sad. If we were to think about Francis as having passed away, then we can think about the protagonist being the best they can be as referring to the protagonist coping and grieving and trying to move on. It's not important for the protagonist to put on a brave face and to be strong for the world, for the other people. They just care about Francis. They would rather just have Francis be alive or just be in their life and just be able to see them even from afar. That's more important to them. This is showcasing the protagonist's internal state. This is giving us some possible hints about maybe what happened to Francis, but again, it is ambiguous. You can interpret it in whatever way resonates with you. And this is also telling us how much this protagonist values Francis. They prefer a general sort of interaction with Francis from afar as opposed to a more specific congratulatory sort of interaction with the world. Verse 2. I interrupt this video with a very special message from myself. This is sponsored by me. I want to let you guys know that I'm offering services on the website Fiverr. I'm offering a few different things. I can help you refine your own analysis skills to develop your own unique perspective about poetry, about song lyrics, about any written work. I've also been getting a lot of messages from you guys letting me know that you use my videos to help you learn English. So if you need an English conversation partner, I'm your girl. You can converse through the internet. I can help you with pronunciation, sentence structure, and random things about American culture that are not super intuitive. If you're a songwriter or a poet and want me to read your original piece of work and provide you with a very detail-oriented feedback, I can do that as well. All that information is going to be linked down below. If you have any questions about any of the services I'm offering, please message me directly through the website Fiverr. Back to the video that you actually clicked here for. Verse 2 introduces light imagery. So it says, on sunny days, I go out walking. I end up on a tree-lined street. I look up at the gaps of sunlight. I miss you more than anything. So the diction here, words like sunny and sunlight, that brings forth light imagery. Light imagery is often positive because sunlight illuminates things for you. It can bring forth clarity. It can also signify a renewal and a rebirth. Again, everything is always context dependent. We do have the mention of sunlight twice in this verse, so that's a significant amount of light imagery within the 4 lines of this verse. I also enjoy how it says tree-lined street. If you watch my channel, you know how hard I stand nature imagery. I view nature as being very lively and full of wisdom. Just the mere mention of trees on a street to me is positive. It brings in the lively energy of nature. And also trees can be very old. I really feel like trees are full of wisdom. So that's another positive attribute to this. So the protagonist is going out walking. They're on a tree-lined street. This also just paints a picture. You can literally visualize what's happening. They're looking up and they see gaps of sunlight. They're seeing the sunlight through the trees. Here, the sunlight is not 100% there, right? There's some cover and shade due to the trees. And usually I would interpret any sort of shade as a little bit more negative because that's introducing some darkness. But the shade here is due to a tree, which in my opinion is a positive sort of image. So I'm not getting any like negative vibes from this. Again, I would love to hear your perspective down below. I view the image of rays of sunlight coming in through the trees as very beautiful, calming and relaxing as well. I understand this is occurring in a very somber and heavy context, but I would view the imagery of like sunlight coming through trees as one of positivity and perhaps hope. It's like a calm sort of somberness. It's a somberness that's skewing toward light. That's how I interpret it. That's what it makes me feel. And to me, the fact that there's sunlight coming in makes me think that this person, Francis, has passed away because it makes you think of heaven. right? Maybe this person the protagonist is thinking about is now up above. So maybe when they're looking up, they think that they're looking at this person metaphorically, right? This is something that people do sometimes when they're talking to a loved one that's passed away. They look up when they talk to them. The protagonist seeing the gaps of sunlight makes them think of this person as well. That's another clue that maybe this person is no longer living. Then the protagonist says they miss them more than anything. So verse 2 is what made me think that this protagonist is grieving someone who has passed away. This is very heartbreaking. This is very sad, but it's being depicted in a very beautiful way. I find there to be a great deal of simplicity in these lyrics. There's not like a very intense metaphor that we need to break down by steps, but there's still so much depth here. The simple image of the trees and the sunlight and the gaps of sunlight are so profound in my opinion. They elicit a very great emotional response for me. That's just a testament to the writing in this song and to Mitski. I really enjoy writing that's concise and simple, but still very effective. It takes a lot of skill to write like this. Anything that may seem simple and concise, there's a lot of skill behind it. So I really enjoy this. This is really satisfying from a literary analysis perspective, but of course the subject matter is very sad and very heavy. Verse 3. Verse 3 is the last verse of the song. It says, "An autumn comes when you're not yet done." That's a very beautiful and eloquent line. "With the summer passing by, but I don't think I could stand to be where you don't see me." Summer comes before fall, so I think that this protagonist experienced this loss during the summer. The phrase "when you're not yet done" I find to be very eloquent and beautiful, and again, very heavy and sad as well. This lyric here, in my opinion, really hits you in your feels. To me, this is saying that the protagonist, first of all, is not over this, which is of course very understandable, but the protagonist isn't talking about themselves here. They're talking about Francis. They're saying you're not yet done. To me, this is giving Francis some lively energy. Even though the season is changing, in the protagonist's memory, in the protagonist's heart, Francis is still alive. Perhaps the protagonist finds the season of summer synonymous with this experience they had of losing someone they love. Since the season is ending, the protagonist may be thinking, how dare this season end? It could be kind of traumatic for the protagonist in a way. It could, of course, be very somber and sad. I mean, obviously, sometimes if you make a season synonymous with an event or a person, you get tied to that season. You feel entangled within that season in a very specific way. That is a possibility of what could be happening here. We can think about the protagonist as maybe feeling stuck in that moment. They can't fathom moving on from the season of summer. They can't believe that the leaves are starting to turn and autumn is on its way, because that signifies the movement of time. Time is always going to move forward. I mean, time is a social construct, but still, like, time, the way we define it or choose to define it, is going to keep moving forward. The seasons are always going to change. This is giving very, very faint and mild Right Where You Left Me vibes by Taylor Swift. I analyzed it, I'll link it down below. In that song, that protagonist is stuck in a metaphorical diner, which I interpreted as kind of like a purgatory because they were, in my opinion, traumatized by a breakup. Very different plot, very different storyline. However, that feeling of being stuck within a moment could be happening here as well. It's happening in a different way, it's a different context, but there could be, like, again, an eyedropper of similarity between those two songs. I thought about that Taylor Swift song just for a moment, so I wanted to share. But I think the passage of time here is messing with the protagonist, and understandably so, because her world has stopped. It's halted, right? I would really want to know how you interpret that line, so feel free to share it with me in the comments below. With the summer passing by, but I don't think I could stand to be where you don't see me. So there's a passage of time, and the protagonist is still thinking about being somewhere where this person, where Francis, could have access to them. The protagonist is hurting. They want to feel a closeness to Francis. The protagonist is desperate for some sort of connection with this person. This is because they're grieving, right? These are very natural things to feel, and it's very heartbreaking to think about. That's the last verse of this song. Again, I want to remind you there are endless ways to interpret this song. For me, I'm more inclined to view this as being about a romantic interest because of the hand lyric in the second line, and also about someone who's passed away, and that's due to the light imagery, the sunlight, and the protagonist looking up and thinking about this person. I find the song to be very beautiful and eloquent, also very somber and sad. I really enjoy Mitski's writing because she can make you feel so much in a very concise way, which again takes a lot of skill. I would love to know what you think about this song. song down below in the comments. I think that this song is pretty ambiguous, so I'm sure there are going to be endless unique takes about what this song means. My tutoring and critique services are linked down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know what other Mitski songs I should analyze, and I'll see you next time. Bye!